And they are away. The 156th boat race begins. A surge of power and spray. Adrenaline takes them out at well over 40 strokes a minute, urged on by the noise of the crowd and the cries of the two coxies.
Cambridge expected to be very quick away, and they are showing that now.
Adam Barhamand barks them on to greater endeavour. This is all about jostling for the early position, this early arm wrestle, and Cambridge with that inside bend, which will start to play out about Craven Cottage.
It does look like Oxford had just got the edge there, but it's very even there, very even indeed, and then Cambridge are now moving.
And Simon Harris, nothing too much to concern him at the moment in terms of keeping the crews apart. Again, this is all they have focused on, all that they have worked towards, and they race past the thousands who line the banks. And this very tight here, and you've got Cambridge just beginning to show a little bit of an edge on this very slender corner that starts on their side. So they get that kind of advantage. It's about a third of a length when they come up to it. But there's a lot of power there coming down on the Oxford side, because they know they've got to defend this corner. They're on the outside. They've got to make sure that they're in a good position as they come onto the straight around this corner. And you can see there Craven Cottage at the top of your picture. That is where the bend starts to kick in. But Oxford and Ben Myers in the bow seat, and Martin Walsh and the Winklevosses, and through to the stroke Charlie Burkitt, Adam Barhamand, they are starting to put a little bit of a squeeze on.
Cambridge down to 35 strokes a minute. That's quite low for this stage, because they're only a minute and a half into the race. Oxford are about a stroke and a half higher than that per minute, and they've got that edge coming into this first corner.
All looks so serene as these giant eight-legged creatures skate up the Thames, but down below it is a far more turbulent picture. The heart rates will be racing up to 180 and beyond, and Oxford certainly do have that early advantage.
Cambridge have started to sprint. They're up to 36 strokes a minute, and they're moving, trying to move back. This is their advantage here, and Cambridge should really be making some kind of distance on Oxford at this point.
This long shot slightly exaggerates the direction they're taking, but they will start to be around a little bit to the right, and then that bend will be in the favour of Cambridge on the Middlesex station.
They go wide because the stream takes the corner very wide, so they go very wide around that first corner. A lot of flats, the flats there are very shallow, and it slows the crews down.
Well, Cambridge have held it at a quarter of a length, and perhaps are even closing up to level, and that bend will be worth three-quarters of a length to them, a quarter of a length to them. The final Middlesex bend towards the end worth three-quarters.
Well, they come around that corner, they're just about coming off the corner, and they've got some buoys in the river just up ahead of them, and they've got to make sure that they steer to the right-hand side of the buoys that are coming up on the left-hand side. But Oxford look like they have three-quarters of a length. They are moving very strongly here, and this is a very important stretch of the river. They come off the corner, and they've got a very long 2-minute straight stretch, and the race can be decided in this straight.
Rob Weitermeyer in the Cambridge bow seats, and George Nash, and through to Peter McClelland and Deaglan McEachem, the president, in the 5 seats. And Cambridge holding on grimly, but Oxford still with that third length advantage.
And it's great conditions, very flat, very good conditions here. We've got a tailwind blowing the crews along at this stage here. They'll find the headwind as they come round the Hammersmith corner on along the island. But at this stage, they'll be feeling the wind behind them, and it's pushing them along.
They've come past the milepost now as they sail serenely past the Barnes Wetlands Centre. And at the moment, that margin of lead at the moment for Oxford remains near enough the same, a quarter of a length.
Cambridge are at 35 strokes a minute, Oxford at 35 strokes a minute.
One of the long days suffering in the gym, countless hours spent ploughing through the rather bleak waters, really, for Cambridge. Wallingford in the Thames for Oxford. This winter the training has been harsh, and it all comes down to this now, 18 minutes on the tideway.
Very close together now. Cambridge trying to move across there to come in behind Oxford, just to minimise the corner. You can see now where this corner is going to start.
the big Hammersmith corner, around under Hammersmith Bridge. That corner is going to be 4 minutes long, and it's going to be quite an advantage for Oxford.
You can see Simon Harris, his right arm outstretched, asking Cambridge to move a little bit closer to their Middlesex station, because the blades are in danger of clashing just for a moment as they head up towards the Harrods Furniture Depository.
The umpire will be very aware that there's a buoy there that's quite a long way out into the middle of the river, and he'll want to get past that. But I think they're just getting through it now, and Oxford in a good position there, about 3/4 of a length ahead. Cambridge know that they've got the disadvantage of the big Hammersmith bend coming up, and that is going to be quite difficult. And their blade work is quite untidy. You can see there on the stroke side, the blade work is not really solid in the water.
Yes, this bend veers round a huge loop in the River Thames. They're heading almost north-northwest at the moment, then they'll sail round and turns back down southwest. And Cambridge desperately trying to keep it at no more than half a length, because that bend is worth 3/4 of a length on the Surrey station in favour of Oxford.
Now the courage of the crews. This is where the courage of the Cambridge crew has to come into play, because they've got to hold on around the outside of this corner. This is very, very important for them. They've got to get back on terms with Oxford, but to do it around the outside of that corner is going to be very, very hard.
They will sail under Hammersmith Bridge. The all-important second lamppost from the left in the centre span is the ideal line, and they will sail under thousands of fans as well. For the first time in years, they are hanging off the girders of this wonderful wrought iron Hammersmith Bridge, and still Oxford lead. Cambridge holding them, but the bend will soon play out in favour of Oxford, favour of the dark blue boat.
And they are holding on very well, Cambridge. They're holding on. They're tucked in a little bit behind there. They are getting the puddles from the oars of the Oxford crew coming down onto their bowside oars, and that's uncomfortable. But they're holding very well, and Ted Randolph is steering them extremely well, trying to minimise the effect of that corner.
Apart from the start and finish, the noisiest part of the course with Hammersmith Bridge and those pubs, the Blue Anchor, Rutland Ship and the Dove, and thousands of spectators to left and right. And it will just be a blur of noise for these two crews now. They have been in pain for, well, since a minute into the race, and they have to work through that pain and keep those stroke rates high.
Well, if Cambridge are doing a very good job holding on to Oxford there, because this turn is worth a good 3/4 of a length. They're halfway around it now. They're 2.5 minutes into it, and they have not dropped back any further. So Oxford, if they want to make some sort of move, they better start doing it now.
They have kept that lead just as it was and as it has been for about a mile now. Oxford trying to break clear, but Cambridge, the light blues, grimly holding on.
Oxford there are sitting there at 35 strokes a minute. They're pushing now. They are trying to break away a little bit, but Cambridge are creeping back. Cambridge are creeping back. Their bow bobble is level there with the Winklevoss brothers. Tyler at 3, number 3, Cameron at number 4, and Cambridge are holding on. But they're 36 strokes a minute. They're having to fight very hard to do this, but they're in a good rhythm. They've settled down, and both crews just about the same sort of rating now, 35.
There is the bend playing out. It straightens out a little bit here into Chiswick Reach with Chiswick 8, the island there, the slender island to the right of the stream. But then it will turn around a little bit more in favour of the Surrey station. Not yet clear water between the two crews. Cambridge hanging on in the respective speeds, just about 15 miles an hour each.
Oxford 34 strokes a minute. They're looking strong, and very often when you get to the top of the corner, when it's been an advantage for the inside crew, the change, the move happens at the top of the corner, because Cambridge would have worked very hard to stay in touch here. Oxford would have been expecting to move, but haven't, so they will really now fight to try and make a break.
As long as they're in touch, Cambridge, as long as the bowman, the man in the 2-seat and 3-seat, can still see the Oxford boat, it gives them a real fillip. They're still in touch, and in fact it looks as if they might be closing back slightly.
Cambridge are in a good position. They've held Oxford all the way around the outside of that corner. They know that they've just got a little bit more of a negative corner coming up at the top of the island, but then it's all in their favour, all the way home.
This is what we've done so far on this 4-mile and 374-yard course under Hammersmith Bridge. They have sailed and round into Chiswick Reach, and then a second little Surrey bend will play out, a quarter of a length in favour of the Surrey station, then 3/4 of a length in favour of the Middlesex station towards the end. So it is a fair course. Oxford look to have perhaps put on another push. They're keeping out there at a quarter of a length, a third of a length perhaps in front.
Oxford still at 34.5 strokes a minute. Their bend is now unrolling. They're losing the advantage there now. The advantage is going to come through to Cambridge very, very soon. In about a minute or so, it'll be all Cambridge's advantage. And this is a very, very close tussle. Cambridge have done very, very well here. They're just moving still. They're just moving back now on Oxford. And the crews there's about a quarter of a length in it.
The umpire is making his feelings clear, and so too the Coxies. I'm sure in those boats they will have codes and calls for little pushes throughout the race. It's a series of 2-minute segments, and they'll ask for more, and then they'll ask for more again from their crews. Rob Weitermeyer with the whiskers in the bow seat, the shortest man in the race in his final race, loser last year.
Cambridge looking very confident there now. They've got a good swing, a good finish at the end of the stroke. They're pushing it away very, very well. The speed of the blades coming through the water, very good, and they're putting just about even now with Oxford.
They are holding on as they sail on this wonderful championship course, and the thousands of spectators who have come here today are seeing a truly engaging race. We thought they were finely balanced in terms of height and weight and average age, and so they are proving on the river as well. Oxford still with that very slender lead.
Cambridge at 33 strokes a minute, Oxford at 34 strokes a minute. The timing on the Oxford bow side not so good now as they come round the last little bit of their advantage there on that corner. They reach the crossing and they're now moving towards the last 1.25 miles of this race, and it is finely balanced.
They are just about level with every catch of the oar, every drive of the legs, every pull of the oar. By every inch, foot and yard, Cambridge are coming back at Oxford, and there is so little now between the two crews, but the advantage for the latter stages of the race in terms of the bend plays with Cambridge.
The ratings are the same, the crews are dead level, their weights are the same, their heights are the same, their age average is the same, and this is finely balanced in this last 1.25 miles.
And they're coming close again, those blades close to clashing, and that is how close they are in terms of the lead. And now, after trailing for so much of the race, Cambridge, the light blue boat, is pulling clear.
Cambridge have got about 6 feet, 6 or 7 feet, and they are moving through. The blades are very close together now. They're overlapping. Cambridge pushing hard over, trying to keep Oxford out on the outside of the corner, and he's moved away now, and they are in a very good position to come up through to Barnes Bridge. Way through.
You can see the head of Cambridge Cox, Ted Randolph, bobbing up and down as he shouts the orders. He calls the tune, the stroke beats out the rhythm, the rest of the boat sways along in time, and Cambridge now is sailing past that grand willow tree, and they know they have the lead, and that will be a huge boost to their energy levels.
Oxford looking very laboured here. They're looking quite heavy in the way they're taking their stroke. They haven't got that spark, that dynamic in the middle of the stroke.
As they move towards Barnes Bridge, both crews will have to shoot the central arch of Barnes Bridge, and they will hear more noise from the crowds who are lining on the Barnes embankment. And the umpire, Simon Harris, again urging the crews to move apart, but they certainly are moving apart in terms of lead. Cambridge have pulled out half a length.
Cambridge has got half a length lead there, and as they take this corner, that will accentuate that lead. They are really, their heads are up now. They're really moving very, very well. They've got a good spring in their step, and they've got a good, strong finish at the end of the stroke.
Only twice in history has it been recorded that a crew has come from behind at Barnes Bridge. It was done notably in 2002 when the Cambridge foreman Sebastian Meyer was nearly unconscious, and Oxford came through from just about this position, but Cambridge have nobody in that state. They are rowing very strongly indeed, but what a wonderful race we have. There is still so little between the two crews as they come to that central arch, and again the blades just about in danger of clashing.
This is a remarkable battle. It's been very, very fair, very, very even. Oxford have been leading and then overtaken just after the big corner that was their advantage. But here you can see how close the crews are together. Cambridge in a very strong position now as they come into the last 3 minutes of the race.
Still half a length between the two crews, but still this bend, a little bit of it in favour of Cambridge, and they are pulling a further lead. And with every passing moment, I'm sure Oxford will dwindle and fade in spirit just a little, but they still have that slight overlap. But it is now only the Oxford bowman Ben Myers who will be able to see the Cambridge cocks Ted Randolph, and Cambridge are closing in on their first victory in 3 years.
Oxford trying to close down on the outside of this corner, being warned by the umpire. But they have a big task ahead of them now. They've got 2.5 minutes to go, and Cambridge are a good half a length ahead of them.
And it is easier now for Cambridge to find the energy to ignore the pain when they're in front, and they know that victory might be theirs for the taking. Far harder now for Oxford.
Cambridge are up at 36 strokes a minute. They can see the finish, they can smell the finish, and they know that they've got just another 2 minutes to go. Hold this position, they're home and dry.
Well, the bookmakers had Oxford as slight favourites, but Cambridge perhaps knew better. This race is far from over yet. There is still a chance for Oxford, but they are going to have to produce some almighty push. Both crews now, if their overloaded senses will allow it, might smell the hops from the brewery near the finish. And they're closing in, but Cambridge with a higher stroke rate. And as we pass 16 minutes, Oxford still half a length, perhaps 3/4 down on the light blue boat.
Minute and a half to go. Oxford about half a length down and closing on the outside of this corner. They are closing, but Cambridge hanging on. Oxford are up to 38 strokes a minute. They're trying to drive it on this last little bit, but Cambridge have the edge. Very cool there. Look across from Ted Randolph. Takes a quick look across to see what he's got to do. And they're coming into this last 3/4 of a minute of the race.
Huge gulps of air from the Oxford crew, but Cambridge still holding them at that distance. They trailed in the early exchanges of the race, but Cambridge pulling up at 37, Oxford 38 strokes a minute. Chiswick Bridge lies there beyond the finish line, and it is coming for Cambridge. It is coming for the first victory in 3 years. They're surely going to hold Oxford off now. Backs breaking, legs dying, gulping in that air, but it is going to be Cambridge's victory as they race past the brewery and towards that finish line.
Cambridge up to 40 strokes a minute in the last 30 strokes. They know they've got it. Oxford just slipping back. They're falling further and further back. Cambridge have got a length and a half, and they're home and dry.
Against the odds, against an unsettled and at times unsatisfactory preparation, Cambridge are emerging to deny Oxford their hat-trick of victories. And as they pass the finish line at Mortlake, the waters of the Thames today run light blue, and huge celebrations for the Cambridge crew, for George Nash, who collapses, and celebrations from Geoff Roth behind him. And Oxford beaten. They have given everything. They are spent, but they have lost. They have nothing.
That was an extraordinary race, Andrew. That was a fantastic race, one of the best races we've seen for a while, because it really did change emphasis right the way through that course, and Cambridge had fantastic staying power as they finished off that last half mile.
For Henry Pelly there, it was victory at the third time of asking for Deaglan, McEachem, the president, and they will now sit in the shadows and the echoes of Chiswick Bridge, a place of utter torment for one crew, total joy for the other, but obviously complete exhaustion for both.